time to wake up. It's Saturday morning. Find some milk and cereal. Grab a bowl and spoon. No, a bigger spoon. Head to the living room and take a seat on the floor while Joseph and Chris present to you Saturday Morning Cartoon!
Hello everybody and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoon Boom! This is a show where we wake up with the Saturday morning sun, plop down the living room floor with the big old sugar cereal, and watch all your favorite cartoons, both old and new. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Chris.
And this morning, we watched Over the Garden Wall. Over the Garden Wall? Over the Garden Wall.
Over the Garden Wall.
One of those.
And this was suggested by Doc via Twitter. Thank you, Doc.
Thanks, Doc. So Over the Garden Wall aired in 2014, created and developed by Patrick McHale, based on an animated short, Tomb of the Unknown, also by Patrick McHale, that ran on Cartoon Network on some sort of, I can't remember the name of it, but some sort of like compilation of shorts that Cartoon Network had sponsored.
It wasn't like that What a Cartoon thing, was it? Or is it something else?
I think it was something similar to that, but it wasn't.
Cartoon?
It wasn't that specifically. It was something that actually said shorts in it, so I don't know exactly what it was. Yeah, but
cool.
So this was among various other shorts, and this one, I guess, shown above the rest because Cartoon Network also decided to produce it, and it ran for. And this was a miniseries. It's actually the first miniseries that Cartoon Network ever produced, and it ran for one season, 10 episodes on Cartoon Network, of course. And it's for a short synopsis, two brothers find themselves lost in a mysterious land and try to find their way home.
True.
Pretty accurate. Yeah. Very accurate.
Yeah.
So, Chris, who are some of the actors that played in this show?
All right. So the character of Wirt was voiced by Elijah Wood, who you might know as Frodo Baggins from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. He's also in the horror comedy Cooties and in the super awesome movie Green Street Hooligans, which is my favorite movie that he's in. I love Lord of the Rings, but Green Street Hooligans is awesome. So, yeah.
Never seen it, but I'll check it out.
Really? Dude.
No, never.
Dude. Okay, you got to see it. It's awesome. The character of Greg was voiced by Colin Dean, who's also been in shows like Adventure Time as Tiffany and also The Candy Kids. The voice of Beatrice was Melanie Linsky, who's mainly known for television series like 2.5 Men, where she plays the character of Rose. The Woodsman was voiced by Christopher Lloyd, who you will know from Taxi, Back to the Future, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You can definitely hear it in the Woodsman's voice. As soon as he starts talking, it sounds just like every character he's ever done, and I love it. The Frog, a.k.a. Jason Funderburker, was Jack Jones, who is mostly known for the Red Skelton Hour, so he is an OG of television. Don't ever let me use OG again on this show or in real life. You have permission to punch me through the computer if I ever say that again. And finally, the voice of the Beast was provided by Samuel Ramey, who was in the movies Don Giovanni and Attila.
Not to be mistaken with Sam Raimi.
Different person. Spelled differently.
Completely.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So, for a few tasty marshmallows out of a big bowl of Garden Wall cereal, that sounds not very appetizing, right?
That sounds like it'd be like dirt and bricks, man.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Not at all. But, like I said, this is the first miniseries created by Cartoon Network. Creator Patrick McHale came up with the original concept for the show in 2004, 10 years before the show actually aired. The character of Greg, the younger of the two brothers, is based on the show creator Patrick McHale's own son. And one of the episodes that didn't make the final cut was a man who makes dice out of the bones of kids.
Well, that's creepy.
Yeah. But if you think about it, like a lot of this, at least from what we watched, there are some really dark undertones to certain things about it.
Oh, there really was. Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that when we get there. But I guess it's not surprising that they cut that episode out, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if they had left something like that in and just kind of put some comedic scenes around it to lighten it a bit. But
yeah, they should have just left it. Should have left it alone, guys.
In case you were wondering what Greg is dressed as, he's dressed as an elephant. That's why he has that upside down tea kettle on his head.
I just thought he was weird.
Nope.
And he just really wanted to keep a tea kettle on his head.
It's because the tea kettle spout is supposed to be the trunk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha.
When I saw that, it kind of like blew my mind a little bit. But after the fact, after I had read that, I had watched episode 9, which is kind of an origin episode, and that explains a lot more than any of the other episodes do. Out of the 10 episodes, we watched 1, 5, and 10. And
yes,
and 9 is the one that actually has like the way that they got into the unknown.
Oh man, see, that would have been like really helpful because
Yeah.
I wish I would have seen that because I was super confused when we watched episode 10.
Right, it transitions nicely into 10. That's why I decided to
Okay.
watch it. But I watched it today because I was like, I'm curious,
Right.
like if there's more to that, and it explains so much that I had no idea about. So, Chris, do you have any memories of this show at all? Like, did you know about it? Did you know it existed? Apparently, it's been around since 2014.
Oh yeah, I had no idea this existed ever. You know, like I feel like the character of Wirt looked familiar, but that just might be having a mental breakdown. So I don't think I knew anything about this show.
Yeah, me neither, until like I knew about it kind of towards the end of last year, 2016, when I saw that the comics were being released, or like a miniseries of comics. And so I was like, well, what is this? And I read one of the comics, but it didn't make any sense to me because the 2015 comics, so there were comics in 2014 that was like a 4 or 5 issue miniseries, and those kind of interlaced themselves between certain episodes so that would kind of add more context and kind of stories to them being in the unknown. And then there were the 2015 series that I think is still ongoing, and that is kind of giving a prequel and a sequel thing going on because it also explains some of what happens to the woodsman's daughter, right?
Yeah.
And also some of what's happening after they leave the unknown. So
I started reading some of those after we watched the episodes that we did.
mhm.
And I was really confused because I didn't know the context that they were in, because half of the first few issues were about the woodsman's daughter and the rest were like mainly just Greg and not much with Wirt involved at all. And then Wirt ended up becoming involved in some of it. So I was super confused. I didn't understand like what I was reading. Yeah, I felt it could have been explained a little better, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think that in their defense, it is a miniseries, and they are short episodes, so we would have been expected to have watched all 10 of them leading up to reading the comics, but
Very true.
which I think that I will be doing anyway because they're only 12 minutes long, so totally worth checking the rest of them out. But for now, let's talk about the 3 that we watched for today's show, which was the very first episode, highest rated episode, random real insurance chosen episode. Order may vary depending on how these episodes follow chronologically, but of course we have to start with the very first episode, being Chapter 1, The Old Grist Mill, Season 1, Episode 1. Lost in the mysterious woods of the unknown, 2 half-brothers named Wirt and Gregory run into a jaded old woodsman.
Have you ever considered being an auctioneer? Like when you say the intro to that stuff, sometimes I'm like, man, I think you missed your calling.
I'm trying, going for it. That's what I'm building my skills for here.
Yeah, put it on your resume.
Yeah, exactly.
I can talk real fast.
I can talk super fast sometimes.
So yeah, this the old grist mill. The intro creeped me out a little bit because it was like the deep voice singing, playing piano, and then you see that's a frog playing the piano, and it was just kind of, I don't know, man. It creeped me out a little.
Like the music, the tune to it is at least the intro song, and I think most of the music within is kind of like 1950s or pre-1950s.
Yeah.
I think Elijah Wood actually said it. A lot of it sounds like it would be played on a phonograph, the way that it sounds. Yeah.
Yeah, but the frog singing it was creeping me out for some reason. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
Like,
well, and we don't even get to see that the frog's singing it at first. He's just playing the piano, and we hear the voice.
Yeah,
but
and
eventually
that was
we do get
creepy
to see
enough,
that.
man. It's
Yeah.
creepy. I don't like it.
We also get to see kind of a brief intro of what's going on. We see we see a hand grab this rock with a face on it, and that makes for some hilarious scenes throughout the series.
That was one thing I didn't understand that much. I didn't really understand the rock with a face. Like, is that something that you can explain?
Watch episode 9.
Okay.
Because, well, I mean, I can just tell you, it's not like a huge secret.
Tell me.
Okay, so Since okay,
Spoilers?
well,
No, I'm
first of all, let's spoilers, because
Thanks.
it's not that it's going to ruin the series or anything, because you should still check it out, but we are going to be spoiling it. So again, just like we mentioned last episode, if you want to watch it, just purely stop right now, go watch it, come back, listen to this.
Yeah.
But if you don't care, then I'm going to say it anyway. So here we go. So the reason you can literally like get everything from episode 9 that you need to explain pretty much everything that's happening in the series. It's Halloween night. They are, Greg specifically is out trick-or-treating dressed as an elephant, well, with his upside down tea kettle on his head.
Yeah.
And he is helping Miss, I can't remember her name. I think Miss Daniels, and he calls her Old Lady Daniels. And he's helping her like rake some leaves or something so he can get candy from her. And Greg has to explain that it's Halloween night, so candy is free. He shouldn't be working for it. And he was like, Miss Daniels says nothing is free, or nothing in life is free. And so it's this like funny little scene, but he also like, that's where he picks up this rock with a face on it too. Is from Miss Daniels' garden. Like she let him have that. So it's just something like he picks up in passing, and it's not like a huge deal because they're still in their regular world at that time.
Okay.
He takes it with them, and he's also hunting for a frog, like in this episode too.
Right. Yes.
Like he wants to go frog hunting. Wirt has this like tape that he wants to give to this girl Sarah that has him playing clarinet on it, and
that explains a lot of episode 10 for me then.
Yeah, and also reciting poetry, and so he's nervous to give it. He's nervous to give it to her, and I think Greg just takes it and goes to try to give it to her. Let's talk. Okay, let's get to 10 before I explain the rest of this, because there's a lot of this. So
and just to like preface, Wirt, so like Greg is dressed as quote unquote dressed as an elephant. Wirt is dressed as what looks like a garden gnome. I mean, I'm guessing that's what he's supposed to be.
That's kind of my assumption, but I don't know if that's the case, because like when he gets confronted in 9 about it, like some girls are like, "What are you dressed as? A garden gnome?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know. I just put something together." And he didn't really explain it, so I don't know if that was his intention, but he does look like a garden gnome.
Yeah, like the best way to describe these two, like their personalities, Wirt is he talks really fast. He overanalyzes everything.
He's also got a very poetic heart.
Yes,
and
he likes poetry. He talks poetic a lot.
He goes into what is it?
He goes into lots of monologues.
Monologues. That's the word I was looking for.
And then Greg is kind of the opposite. Greg is just a little like super ADHD kid that is just like the world could be exploding around him and he wouldn't notice. He would just be having fun and be like, wee, and like jumping between the explosions and nothing would happen to him. And that's him.
Yeah, Wirt's like the straight man and Greg is just comedy relief, like full on most of the time.
The worst attention problems I've ever seen in any character ever. He's like Dee Dee from Dexter's Laboratory dialed up to 10.
Totally.
No, dialed to 11.
With the intelligence of Ralph from The Simpsons. So what's happening to open this up? You've got Greg and Wirt walking through this forest that they just arrived in the unknown, and they're in this forest. They're lost. They don't know where they are, where they're even going at this point. They're trying to go back to. We're not even sure yet. So Greg is just reciting these names like Penguin, Pete, Steve, like all these random names. And he's like, but the absolute worst frog name would be, but the worst name for a frog is what he's looking for. He starts leading a trail of candy from his pants, which comes into play a lot this episode.
That just sounds weird. Yeah, he just has his pockets stuffed full of tons of candy.
Well, you know what that is? I mean, it's because he was trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
Exactly, which we don't understand from the first episode, but it's cool to tie that back.
Right. So they come across this guy, a woodsman, who's cutting lumber and stuff like that. And they're like kind of trying not to be seen. Well, at least Wirt is. And I don't think Greg really notices or cares.
Yeah.
And then they get spotted. The woodsman kind of collects them and takes them to his cabin, where he's like kind of telling them like they shouldn't be out there. He mentions the beast is out there and could get them and all kinds of stuff. And he talks about how his burden is that he's constantly chopping wood, and it's a specific wood, and he's creating an oil from this wood that he has to keep putting in this lantern, because if this lantern goes out, he doesn't really say the consequences, but like he
not at this
that
point.
It's really bad.
Yeah, he has to keep this lantern lit.
No
also,
matter
before he even finds them, like they meet this talking bluebird.
I forgot about
And we also see this little black turtle walk by. Greg puts a piece of blue candy on it. And that comes into play later for a very important reason, but it's just a throwaway scene right here. Wirt, being the very literal one, is trying to understand why there's a talking bird. Like,
this
their brain shouldn't be big enough, right?
The bird gets offended.
Oh yeah, it gets offended because he commented on the small brain of a bird. And when the woodsman does find them, the bird's like, "All right, bye, like see ya."
It
flies
just
off.
takes off. Like, nope, not having it.
The woodsman has them inside, and they're talking about like, should we go? Like, what should we do? And eventually the woodsman's like, you don't have to stay, but if you go out there, the beast is going to get you. And so he's talking about something about like, the woodsman's talking about something like evil spirits or something will come and approach you. And then Greg's like, to help us? And he's like, no, not to help you.
Right. He goes outside anyway.
Yeah, because he's looking for his frog that he
can't
he's
find
lost.
the frog.
And right now its name is Kitty.
He's constantly giving this thing new names.
He's out looking for his frog Kitty at this time, and he's like, "Where is that frog of mine?" And Frog's giving me a runaround and trying to find it, and then you hear the like rustling in the woods, and he falls backwards into this barrel, or he trips over his candy trail, and falls backwards into this barrel. And he finds his frog, and then you see this like giant wolf beast like stick its head down in the barrel.
Yeah,
and he's
it was
just
creepy too.
It was creepy looking with giant eyes, and his first reaction is like, "You have beautiful eyes." That's the first thing he says.
It was good, but like seriously, like I didn't know anything about this show, so I didn't expect like the creep factor to it.
Right.
So like when this like giant wolf thing, this big black wolf just starts slowly sticking its head down the barrel. I mean, really slowly. Like it's very unnerving. And I was like, whoa,
it's just like
what is this?
Peeking over the top of it, and then sticks its head in there. Yeah.
Oh man, it was disturbing, honestly.
From the way that the show intros, like you don't expect it to be that kind of show at all. And I think that's why it comes as such a shock.
There's some like Courage the Cowardly Dog type disturbing moments.
Oh, yeah.
That's the best way I can describe it. Just really eerie things that you take it out in context and you're like, it's not so bad. But like when you're in the show, you're just like, oh, whoa, no, I don't want to see this. So then Greg goes back into the cabin, like not really worried at all. And then where it's just kind of like, where you been? And then the giant like beast is right behind Greg, and Greg just doesn't even care. He's just like,
At this point, he's like, they have to escape out the back door, and he throws a ton of candy and is like, candy camouflage, and just like throws it out to hide in the candy while he runs off to escape the beast. Yeah, no. And they go out to kind of this barn in the back where they have to climb up, or they're climbing up to escape the beast. He knocks over this, I guess, shelf thing that they're on. And they're behind it. And so they climb up to the ceiling or the roof of this barn, and the beast comes up after them. Greg throws candy at it, and Wirt's, they see that the beast he likes candy. So
yeah, that's actually all he really wants is candy.
He would throw more at him, but he doesn't really have anything else. And then I think Greg finds one more piece like stuck to Wirt, since he's been throwing candy around the whole time. And he takes that, throws it down at this little kind of mill thing, water mill. Mm-hmm. And the beast gets stuck in it. And at first I think like it starts getting squished. And at first I'm like, oh man, like how far are they going to go with this? Because it looks like it's going to be like squished like completely and be like a bloody mess or something. But it doesn't take it there.
Yeah, instead it's like a Heimlich, and it like coughs up that little black turtle with a piece of candy stuck to it. And then the big beast turns into like just a regular little dog.
Yeah, Greg says it's his new best friend, and then it knocks him off and runs off.
I do have to mention, like, there's one little thing that happened earlier in the episode that was really funny, and I forgot to mention, which was when they first got inside the woodsman's house. So we're overthinking everything. It's like, okay, we're gonna have to figure out how to escape. Like, what do we do? Maybe we should knock him out. We'll knock the woodsman out. You know, coming up with this plan. And Greg's obviously not paying attention. But when the beast first gets inside the house after Greg finds it, the woodsman comes downstairs like with a gun, like ready to, or I don't know if it's gun or axe, but ready to save the boys. And Greg immediately hits him in the back of the head and knocks him out. And he's like, I'm doing the plan. and like he could have saved them. Instead, Greg just knocks him out.
Leading up to that, you see Greg like throughout like about half the episode, he's just like picking up random things and swinging them. And you're not sure why at the time. And it's all to lead up to him knocking out the woodsman or trying to.
Practicing knocking the woodsman out.
Yeah.
He did it at the worst possible moment.
Right.
Of course.
So there were some really good parts, but eventually, so the giant wolf thing is defeated for the time being, but the beast is still there because that little black turtle escaped. And so the woodsman warns them about it, and they basically destroy his barn thing. And where it's like, I can totally fix it. And he's like, I can't fix it. And so he's like, just go flee to the woods if you can. And like, and then when he's talking to Greg, he's like, look after that frog and give him a proper name. And so the whole time, like he's looking for a name for this frog anyway. So that kind of wraps up that episode. I mean, like I said, they're only 12 minutes. So there's not
definitely short.
Too much to it, but it was a really great intro episode. It was a lot of fun.
And the one thing that I liked is that the woodsman did say, because they thought that was the beast, and they're like, "Oh, we defeated the beast," and he's like, "That's not the beast."
Yeah,
like the beast is still out there, kind of. And I like that because at first I was like, "Oh, well, that's over." I mean, I guess they'll find something new. Like, and then I thought maybe it'll just be a monster of the week kind of episode thing, but no, that wasn't the case. Like that was not the beast.
It was a good way because I know the woodsman makes more appearances, so it's not his only time to be on the show. And we also get to see this bird that they encountered later on too. Actually, starting in this episode, I don't know which episode like she actually reintroduces herself. Maybe even the next one. But
I would guess episode 2 since she showed up in the first one.
Yeah, probably so. So and yeah, like you said, it's Beatrice.
I love Beatrice. She's my favorite character.
She's the most like logical of them all, I guess. But she's also got an attitude.
Yeah, she's like. We say logical, but there's some things in this episode that are like, well, yeah, we'll get to it.
Well,
but made me love her character.
The second episode we watched for today's show was Chapter 5, Mad Love, which was Season 1, Episode 5. And this was the one that was chosen by Doc, correct?
What was funny is that he originally didn't choose an episode, so me and Joseph were like, okay, well, I was like, Joseph, you pick an episode. And he's like, Episode 5. And then Doc, after hearing our last episode, was like, hey, I forgot to choose an episode. Do Episode 5. So we're like, okay.
The reason I chose it was just because of the name, because it reminded me of the Joker Harley Quinn story.
Yeah, I knew it that was the reason you chose it too.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing as soon as I saw the title. I was like, oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely unrelated, but I just like the name.
Yeah.
But it was a fun episode. So in this one, is millionaire Quincy Endicott's sprawling mansion haunted by a beautiful ghost, or is the tea baron going mad?
I really enjoyed. This was my favorite episode out of the ones we watched.
It was pretty hilarious.
And like, what's funny too is because we obviously missed part of this story, because where this picks up, the brothers, Beatrice, a talking horse named Fred, and this really loony like millionaire guy are just eating dinner at this table in this mansion. And I'm like, okay, I obviously missed a lot of things, but yeah, it's so ridiculous that it's hilarious.
Yeah. And at least Greg keeps calling him like Unky Endicott. Like, so it's like, at first I'm thinking like, is this their actual uncle? But I think it's just like a play name kind of thing.
Well, it turns out like the guy's very senile. Like he's mad. I mean, he's basically a play on the Mad Hatter kind of. And so the brothers,
That's true.
So they could get food and shelter and stuff. At least from what I took at it, they knew he was crazy, so they were pretending to be his nephews, and he just assumed, oh yeah, you're my nephews, and then he was like, a bunch of times he was like, oh, you remember that time we did this, and they're like, sure. But like they're eating and stuff, and my favorite part is so he was talking about his ridiculous excess of money, and talking about this ghost that he saw, and she was so beautiful, and he kind of fell in love with this ghost. So Greg's like, oh, I want to see a ghost, so they go off to find the ghost. Meanwhile, Beatrice the bird and Fred the horse are trying to talk Wirt into robbing this guy.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, that was funny.
Well, Beatrice is just looking for, initially just looking for enough money to ride the ferry to get across this lake of some sort.
Which is just 2 pennies.
Right, which is just 2 pennies is all she needs. And
she's like, let's rob this guy.
But Fred the horse just like, I want to steal.
How certain Fred the horse is about wanting to steal.
Right,
God, that was funny.
Very firm about it, and it made his character hilarious because it's not like it's an anthropomorphic horse; it's just a regular horse who
Just
can
a
talk.
horse.
Yeah,
yeah. Beatrice starts looking for money, and like she's constantly breaking everything. Like
Yeah.
she'll be looking in jars and then just knock it over and it'll shatter.
and words.
And there's one that like Wirt tried to save and like kind of uprighted it, but then he immediately knocked it over by accident and broke it anyway. So
Yeah. Because he's telling him, he's like, can we look for money without breaking everything or without breaking anything else? And
and then he immediately breaks something.
right, they're just completely reckless about it. At least Beatrice and Fred are.
Yeah, and then we got this really interesting tidbit because I wasn't expecting this either, and I like this because it's very Beatrice centered. When she's like, oh, like they're still trying to find money to steal, and they're like talking about checking his wardrobe and like, you know, where else could money be? And she's like, yeah, I used to sew money into my clothes. And Wirt's like, your clothes? What do you wear? Like you wore a tiny vest, a bird vest or something?
Yeah.
And then she says, no, I used to be human. And I thought that was cool. I was like, oh man, so there's like this whole other story for her that we haven't even gotten to see yet.
Right.
Which like made her character a lot more interesting to me and like solidified her as my favorite character.
Yeah, it was something about, because she explained it a little bit. Was it this episode that she explained it kind of where?
Yeah, she explained it in another scene in this episode. But yeah, like she threw a rock at a bluebird and then was cursed.
She and her whole family.
Her whole family were cursed and turned into bluebirds themselves.
Right.
So she's trying to get to a specific place so she can try to lift the curse.
Right. And so she actually does have that interesting backstory, which, like you said, makes her character makes her motives more understandable.
Yeah, exactly. But it's still hilarious that she wants to steal things.
Oh, yeah, true. Fred is just a horse who likes to steal things for all we know. Like, I don't know if he has the actual backstory.
And this was one of my favorite scenes, but I feel like this is one you probably enjoyed a lot too, was the peacock.
Oh, yeah.
When the peacock burst through the window screaming.
Like, while they're looking, this like white peacock just like busts through the window and just starts screaming. At one point, Endicott is just like, I think I've lost my mind. And then Greg's like, all right, well, we'll find that after we find the ghost. Like, he's super set on finding that ghost.
What's funny is like Endicott, like whenever he does say things about how, like there's a few times that he says something about he might be losing his mind or he might be going mad. But whenever, like, he's always really joking and happy. But when he says those things, he gets super serious.
Yeah, real serious. Mad.
And I'm like, whoa.
Right.
And he's like, just gets this look on his face, like this really sorrowful, like deep thinking kind of thing. Like he's contemplating his entire life.
Yeah.
And then Greg's like, oh, let's look for the ghost.
Right. Greg, it doesn't faze Greg at all. Greg's
very
one-track minded. We also, this is also where we get to hear the first inclinations of Wirt having a crush on this girl, because he starts telling Beatrice about it because they're sharing secrets. Like, Beatrice shares that big secret that she has. Wirt is just sharing things like, Yeah, I had a crush on this girl, and I play clarinet. Oh, he also says that he reads poetry to himself at night. And she's like, maybe the poetry thing's weird, but everything else is just normal, like, growing up things. Like,
Yeah.
that's not weird.
And you know what? And then like I was like having that moment where I'm like, oh, I wonder how like real Beatrice is. And I'm like, oh, her and Wirt, if she was not a bird, they could be together.
Oh.
But she's a bird, and that's gross.
But as we've seen,
it works like that.
just like we saw in Your Name last episode,
It's true.
love breaks all boundaries, even time.
It's true.
So
Exactly.
who knows?
Time, death, birds.
Right, birds. Yeah.
Birds.
Also, one thing about Wirt is he's very interested in architecture as well. And you hear that this episode where he's talking about the French Rococo style doesn't match Uncle Endicott's sensibilities. And it's like,
Yes.
like he starts like using all these like these big like architecture terms to describe
Right.
the room. How this rounds out, and this was really cool and weird, and I liked it. Wirt and Beatrice find this, like they stumble into this secret entrance into this other room. Greg and Endicott end up going over there, like end up in this room
Yeah.
as well. And then they see the woman who's supposedly a ghost, because we see her portrait up in this room, like above the fireplace. And
Right.
so she comes walking in, and at this time we're just like, what is this? Like, is she a ghost? Like, what's going on? And apparently, because Endicott's so rich and so is she, their mansions kind of they kept growing until they kind of merged into each other in a way, or they're
Right.
kind of interconnected in this garden, because they both have like tea companies. And
Yeah, they're both heads of rival tea companies.
rival tea companies, yeah. And what was really funny was when they do meet, and because they both thought that their place was haunted by, you know, a beautiful ghost or a handsome ghost or whatever,
Yeah.
vice versa they were saying. And then she's like, oh, my business competitor. And then you just start kissing, like just out of nowhere.
And they immediately fall in love really
Right.
quickly. It was funny. Their mansions were just so big that they just never ran into each other until now.
Right. They were so big and next to each other, they just merged without them even realizing it.
So then, like, everything's kind of hunky dory. Oh, I'm using all these stupid phrases today, man. I gotta.
Hunky dory.
But like, so everyone's getting ready to leave and stuff, and Fred is staying behind. He's like, I have a real job now. I'm an official tea horse.
Yeah.
They're like, what the heck is a tea horse? But like they get 2 pennies, which is what they needed to cross the ferry. And Greg immediately throws the 2 pennies into a pond, like without hesitation.
And then I think his last line was like, Uncle Endicott got me all wrong. I got no sense at all. But he's talking about like dollar cents, like the
Right.
2 cents that he threw out. So it's kind of a funny ending to that. I assume eventually they get this money and end up crossing this whatever river or lake they needed to, though.
You know, who knows with these two?
That's
Who
true.
knows?
I have no idea. But that takes us into the last episode that we watched for today's show, which was Chapter 10, The Unknown, Season 1, Episode 10, which is the last episode of this miniseries. Without context going into this, it was kind of tough to
Yes.
understand what was happening.
I was super lost in this episode, man. I was so lost. And like, as it went on, it just got like, I got more and more confused.
Yeah. Episode 9 answers any of the questions that you would have had for Episode
Okay.
10.
So everyone listening, if you were going to watch any of this miniseries, you have to watch episode 9.
Yeah.
You have to. It is required now.
Watch it in succession, but before you watch 10, definitely watch 9.
Yes. Yes.
So the description of this one is: the beast has come. The final chapter begins.
Yes.
So yeah, to start out, we get to see Beatrice flying through the snow. We're not sure where she's going, what she's doing, and then we see that she was trying to find Greg, who she sees talking to this like large, like shadowed figure.
That looks like it has antlers or something.
Right.
Like, it turns out it's not antlers, but that's what it looks like. And it has a really deep and creepy voice.
Like this.
Yeah. It's I mean, this is the beast. Like, this is what we've been, the antagonist that's been kind of in the background the entire miniseries. and it's talking to Greg, and it sent Greg on this mission to get these items, and it was like a silver thread, a golden comb, and
which was just like a honeycomb,
right? And the silver thread was just spider thread on a stick, or spider silk on a stick.
It's kind of funny because the Beast was kind of like, giving that sense of, well, that's not really what I was going for, but I guess that works.
Right. Well, the thing that from 9 that you need to understand, well, I don't even think it's from 9, but just the overall thing you need to understand coming into this episode is that what the Beast plan is to basically keep anyone who wanders into kids that wander into this forest and get lost, like keep them busy and occupied to the point where they eventually just give up and become part of the forest. And we see at a certain point that Greg starts to go that direction.
Man, there's so many weird things happen in this. Like, well, the Beast starts singing, which was weird.
Oh yeah.
But he's got a very good opera voice. So the woodsman comes out and confronts the Beast. And like this part was like, dude, this is kind of heartbreaking, honestly. Like we find out what the whole thing is with that lantern and everything. And
yeah, so the lantern, and this is where it's like, wow, this is kind of the undertones are a lot darker than I thought they would be. So the lantern is actually, at least what the woodsman understands, because this is what the Beast has told him, is so his daughter was turned into, or her soul was lost in the forest or whatever. And so the Beast has promised him that her soul has been captured in this lantern as long as it stays lit. But the moment that it goes out is her soul's lost forever. And so he is keeping this lit with these oils from these Edelwood trees, which, and I'll say this right now, the Edelwood trees are actually, they are the lost children. They are being turned into these trees. So he has been unintentionally grinding up these children to get this oil to keep this lantern lit. And that is such a dark thing that I was not expecting.
Me either. I was really taken aback. I was like, whoa, that went to like the darkest place I could imagine.
Yeah.
And then so Wirt and Beatrice end up finding Greg, and Greg now he's being turned into a tree. And like he's got like stuff wrapping around him. Like, well, I guess he isn't turning into it yet, but he's turning a different color. These roots look like they're coming from the ground and wrapping around him and stuff.
Right.
They get up there and he coughs and some leaves come out. And Beatrice is like, oh no, the leaves are growing inside him too. And Greg's like, no, I was just eating leaves.
Yeah. So it does keep that humor to it, or Greg does at least, even in this dire situation. Like he, at this point, like he's given up, and that's why he's kind of turning into this tree. But he's also kind of, even to Wirt, he's like, well, there's just one thing I need you to do, or one thing I need to say is that I stole this rock from Miss Daniel's garden. So I guess going back to what I was talking about before, she didn't give it to him. So he actually took this rock with a face on it from her garden. He says that he's a stealer, and that's a rock fact. And that was something that he kept saying with that rock with the face on it was these rock facts that he goes through the series with. And so that's kind of heartbreaking, because like that's his like last wish, is that like, or just to confess that he stole this rock, and for him to return it or something, and that Jason Funderburker would be the perfect frog name.
Yes, and that is the name of the frog now.
Yeah,
Jason. Like the Beast gives him this ultimatum, or gives Wirt this ultimatum about Greg. Tree Greg. Well,
it's the same as the woodsman. He needs to take on the task of becoming a lantern bearer or watch his brother perish. Basically, he's doomed unless you keep this lantern lit, like the soul, like keep his soul within this lantern.
And one of the parts I like the best of this was Wirt agrees to it, and you're like, oh no. Then Wirt's like, no, that's dumb.
And so not taking the lantern, like we start seeing how desperate the Beast is to get this lantern lit. And then the woodsman has a realization that his daughter's soul was never in this lantern to begin with. The beast just needed it lit for a particular reason that they don't go into completely, but the idea is like without those lanterns being lit, like either he can't survive or something to that effect. So basically, like, he's sustaining himself off of these burning souls, or, well, supposedly souls. Well, they are burning souls because he's keeping these lanterns lit with the souls of all these other children who have been turned into trees. So
yeah, so like what happens in this one part is the woodsman, as he's figuring this stuff out, he acts like he's gonna blow the lantern out. It gets super dark, and he like hides the lantern for a second, brings it out, and we see for a real split second what the beast currently looks like. And he looks like he's like a tree covered in faces. And he's like disturbing looking. And it's so quick that I had to go back and pause the cartoon. It took me a few times to do it, to actually get a screenshot of him.
You know what's interesting?
It's literally there for a few frames.
I didn't even catch that because I was taking notes while I was watching it. So I think I must have missed that since it happened so fast.
It's literally only a couple frames.
So it's a tree made of faces?
Yeah.
Oh, that's super creepy.
And they are like horrible looking faces. Like some of them are just creepy. Some of them look like they've been screaming.
Oh man, like mangled faces. Dang. Yeah. That's awesome.
It's very disturbing looking. So yeah, we could see him for a quick second, and then like the woodsman ends up blowing the lantern out and the beast is gone. Just like whatever was tying him to it, like it destroyed him.
Well, so the story is complete and everyone is satisfied with the ending, like the narrator starts to say. And
I was so confused by that because like it was like all of a sudden you see Wirt and Greg like falling through water, and then all of a sudden like it's Wirt waking up in a hospital like in modern times, and I'm like, what is going on? I was so confused here.
Yeah, that's definitely explained in episode 9 because at the end of episode 9 they fall into the water, and that's what transitions it to ending up in the hospital thing, and you'll see why when you watch it. But
I don't want to spoil everything else, but there's a couple more things that happen with some of the other characters, like as they're closing out the miniseries, the resolution of some of the other characters' stories that have been going alongside this, and it just like everything's done, and we don't understand why what happens, and I was really disappointed with that. You know, like with Beatrice, and then with the woodsman, and like these other things happen, and it's not explained how or why, and I was disappointed with that.
I think we could probably get more from it had we watched the entire thing, but no, I really enjoyed it pretty much all the way through. So they wake up in the hospital. They are, talking to everybody that's there. What's funny is Jason, the real Jason Funderburker, is there too, because Greg is asking about, hey, where's Jason Funderburker? And he's just like, me? And he's like, no, not you, my frog.
I didn't catch that.
But you'll see why that's funny if you watch 9, and why that's funny that he named him that. So
nice.
But for now, it looks like it's about time we grab hold of our inner kids and toss them over the garden wall as well, to see what they thought of this cartoon.
I kind of thought this cartoon would be really lame, but it was really funny. Wirt was kind of cool, but Greg is way better because he's a lot like me. And the Beast was really scary because he's always in the dark and he sings opera music, which sucks. I gave this cartoon 4 bowls of candy cereal out of 5, and now I have to go find a bluebird to help me rob old people. Bye!
First off, let me see how much I love this comedic fantasy adventure. While the show seemed like it would be fairly lighthearted at the beginning, there were moments of true tension and suspense that helped deliver a certain balance that I really appreciated. Following Wirt and Greg on their quest to escape the unknown was made even more enjoyable by the unique companions and the adversaries they met along the way. Not to mention the quirky personalities possessed by both boys. Overall, I'd give Over the Garden Wall 5 big bowls of candy camouflage cereal out of 5, and thanks to Fred's admitted love of thievery, I'll definitely be double-checking my pockets around horses from now on.
Man, you can't trust horses or birds with any kind of money. I mean, they're notorious for stealing. Oh my God. Hey, come on now.
No.
Get it? I said, hey.
Hey.
Because horses.
They
Whatever.
like
Whatever.
hey, and they say nay. Well, we ruined this episode.
Yep. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, really, like I super enjoyed this show. I like the animation style. I like the kind of not quite awkward comedy that it has to it, but how it breaks the tension that's often built up with those comedic moments. I appreciated that, and it had like my inner kid said, it had a great balance to it that made me really enjoy it. And so I would say, especially since it's so short, make the investment. Go look at it's on Hulu. At least that's where I watched it. So check it out on there or wherever you are able to find it. And it's a total of, since they're 12 minutes apiece, you've got 24 minutes for 2. So that's a total of 5 regular episodes. So please check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. Yeah, and it was a lot of fun, and I plan on catching up with the comics afterwards.
Yeah, the episodes were really short. They were to the point, but I enjoyed them quite a bit. The characters, like you said, were all really quirky, really memorable, and the whole show had this dark twist to it that I did not expect at all. I guess I thought that this was going to be something really geared for little kids from the style of the animation, but it really did not shy away from death and ideas like suffering and creepy things. So I was really pleasantly surprised. I was disappointed with a few things, as I said, especially in episode 10 with the resolution. And for me personally, I know I didn't see 9. I feel like they could have left some, breadcrumbs or something in the earlier episodes, because I feel like even if you're watching 1 through 8, I feel like it would be kind of confusing. But I can't pass that as total judgment since I haven't watched the entire series yet. So I'm definitely going to go back and watch the rest of it. And I think I will pick the comics back up after I do that, because right now the comics are kind of I don't understand what's going on, except for a few parts. So I'm going to go back, watch it all, reread the comics, and then I'm sure that it'll find its home in my heart, like a little bluebird stealing money.
It'll steal your heart like a little bluebird or a horse stealing money.
It'll steal money from my heart.
Also, something to point out is it's left in such a way where it's kind of open to the idea that maybe none of this happened at all, where it almost pulls a Dallas on you, where it's I guess to make it something that I think more people could relate to, like a Pan's Labyrinth, even, where it's
What's going on in their heads?
It's just amazing fantasy, but was it all in their heads or was there some reality to it? But there's a small thing where it's I think at the end, Jason Funderburker, the frog, he his stomach glows or something, and he had eaten something previously in one of these episodes that was kind of a glowing orb. So then it's okay, well, maybe that ties it back to this fantasy land. So maybe it wasn't all fantasy. Maybe there was some truth to it. But I like that it's unclear, so that it leaves it kind of up to your judgment.
Well, and also the closing thing with, I don't remember if it's the narrator or if it's the frog singing and playing a piano, but right before the credits and stuff. He says something about lies and being the best stories or something like that. And then I'm oh, maybe this wasn't real. They mess with your head a lot. So I have no idea.
Yeah, it kind of leaves you thinking, and that's pretty cool. It's respectable.
I don't like to think.
But thank you, Doc, for bringing this to us. This is really interesting, and I found it something I definitely want to catch the rest of.
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely going to watch the rest of it, so thanks a lot.
So, well, listeners, looks like our milk supply is now run dry, so it's time for us to say goodbye. Next week, we'll be watching
Street Sharks, suggested by Putty, who also suggested the Jackie Chan adventures to us months ago, or a year ago, I guess now. But yeah.
This is gonna go way downhill. Jackie Chan, great. Dude. Street Sharks, I already know.
It's gonna be Jocelyn.
Slamoo.
Also, we have 2 things. We have another 5-star review on iTunes.
Oh, cool.
And this was by One Hot Cop.
Okay.
I'm not sure if this is a stripper or an actual cop. The title of the review is amazing with lots of exclamation points. This is my favorite podcast. It's funny and has a lot of info of the cartoons. I rated this podcast 5 big bowls of cereal out of 5. Then in parentheses says, also, can you guys do the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy? Thanks.
Cool.
And then a nerdy smiley face.
Nice. That's very cool. And
yeah,
I'm
awesome.
surprised that it's his favorite, but I will not argue with that.
Or her favorite. We don't know.
Or her favorite.
We don't know.
True.
Thank you, One Hot Cop.
Thank you.
Let us know if you're a stripper or an actual cop. I'm asking for a friend. And you know, that's a really smart way to leave a request. So yes. I appreciate that. That was clever. Thank you.
You snuck it into a huge compliment, so now we have to do it no matter what.
Yes. Also, for all of you listeners, and like, so we have a lot of listeners from different parts of not only, you know, the country where we live, but all around the world. So that means like people are listening to this in different time zones, things like that, just whenever. And we are semi-active sometimes on Twitter and Facebook. We're not very good at social media.
No.
But we have created a subreddit. So if you go to reddit.com/r, like all of them, and then Cartoon Boom, we have created a Saturday morning Cartoon Boom Reddit. And it doesn't have to be just about our podcast. I mean, we can just get everybody there, talk about the cartoons you want to talk about, make requests, talk about episodes that we've done is fine. And you can interact with us. So Joseph and I are going to try to be a lot more active on there than we've been on other things. So like, yeah, we're looking forward to it. The page looks cool because I made it. Oh. And all links to every single one of our episodes is up there right now. And we will post other things from time to time, like just funny things we see, conversation starters. We'll be asking questions about cartoons, stuff like that. So flock to it. Cartoon Boom, the subreddit. Almost said Sunreddit. Go there.
Come teach us how to use Reddit better.
Yeah, like we don't know anything about Reddit. So we're going into this like complete buffoons, just trying to figure things out. But we're looking forward to like, hopefully this is a place that we can interact with all of you listeners more, which is kind of our goal. So please go there, subscribe, and then leave a post so we can talk to you. We would love to. Yeah,
please. It's been great talking to anybody who suggested cartoon to us. We've actually made some good friends who have suggested these cartoons to us just through this podcast. So that's been amazing. And I'd love to make many more. So please join in the conversation.
Absolutely. And that's a place where like all of our listeners can talk to each other too, which we haven't really had a way to do that before. So I'm really looking forward to that. So not only like us making friends, but you guys can be friends as well. And we can have our own little nerdy cartoon community. So ahead of time, thank you for going there. If you didn't go there, I'm disappointed in you.
Hopefully One Hot Cop will join us.
Please, One Hot Cop, go to the Cartoon Boom subreddit, and then you can let us know if you're the stripper or the cop. Or both. I guess you could be both.
Right, true.
One in the day, one at night, you know? It's like Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Exactly what I was going to say, yes.
Yeah. I know. I read your mind.
You got it.
I knew this.
Once again, I'm Joseph.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll see you next Saturday.
Presented by Nerdsloth,
a place for lazy nerds.
If you like what you heard, consider donating at patreon.com/nerdsloth so we can continue bringing you quality shows. Be sure to also leave us a review and share your favorite episodes and clips on social media. If you're looking for more content, visit us at nerdsloth.com.